The red dust of Mars swirled outside the windows as Hannah scrubbed another stubborn stain from table 12. Her uniform stuck to her sweaty back after working since dawn. The Martian rest stop wasn't exactly fine dining, more like a truck stop. That happened to be on another planet. Greasy food, flickering neon signs, and the constant hum of spacecraft engines landing and taking off just outside. Her wrist communicator buzzed with another message from the hospital on Earth. Dad's treatment was expensive, and the doctors wouldn't wait much longer for payment. Hannah sighed and wiped her hands on her apron. 6 more hours until her shift ended. Then she'd start her night job cleaning the cargo bays. The other waitresses, Minji and Yuna, were gossiping near the kitchen about some celebrity who'd been spotted on Mars. Hannah ignored them. She had real problems to worry about. Outside, a sleek silver transport touched down on landing pad 7. Unlike the bulky cargo ships and passenger shuttles that usually stopped here, this one gleamed like a jewel. Its engines made barely a whisper as they powered down. Definitely not the kind of ship that belonged at their little diner. "Bet they don't even come in," muttered old Chef Lee, glancing through the service window. Rich folks like that usually have their food delivered to their ship. But the airlock hissed open, and out stepped a tall man in a perfectly tailored dark suit. Even from across the dining room, Hannah could tell his clothes cost more than she made in a year. His black hair was styled perfectly, and he moved with the confidence of someone who owned everything he looked at. The entire diner went quiet. Even the truckers stopped eating their synth meat burgers to stare. Conversations died mid-sentence. Someone's fork clattered onto their plate. Hannah's stomach dropped as she recognized the face she'd seen on news broadcasts across the galaxy. Kim Woo-jin, the CEO of Stellar Industries, the man who'd built humanity's first permanent space stations, the person who controlled more spacecraft than some entire planets. What was he doing here? Woo-jin walked straight to the counter, his expensive shoes clicking on the worn metal floor. He didn't seem to notice the stares or the whispered conversations starting up behind him. He just sat down on one of the cracked vinyl stools and looked directly at Hannah. "Just coffee, Black," he said. His voice was quiet but somehow commanded attention. Hannah's hands trembled as she reached for the coffee pot. This was Kim Woo-jin, the man who'd negotiated humanity's expansion into 12-star systems, who'd built the massive orbital platforms around Jupiter, who'd made first contact with 3 different alien species, and he was asking her for coffee. Yes, sir," she stammered, trying not to spill as she poured. The coffee wasn't even real. Just synthetic stuff that barely tasted like the original. Someone like him probably had servants who prepared actual Earth-grown beans. Behind her, she could hear Minji frantically whispering into her communicator, probably calling every gossip channel on Mars. "He's really here. Kim Woo-jin is at the rest stop." Woo-jin seemed unbothered by the attention. He sipped his coffee without complaint, even though Hannah knew it was terrible. He was studying the diner like he was memorizing every detail. The faded posters advertising long-gone products, the scratched tables, the view of the landing pads through dirty windows. "Busy day?" he asked, glancing at Hannah's tired face. "Every day's busy here, sir." She wiped down the counter nervously. "Lots of ships pass through Mars Colony 7. He nodded like this was fascinating information. "I imagine you see all kinds of people. Mostly cargo pilots and miners heading to the asteroid belt. Sometimes passengers transfer here on their way to the outer colonies." She wasn't sure why she was telling him this. Maybe because he actually seemed to be listening. "And you've worked here long?" 3 years, since I turned 18. She didn't mention that she'd lied about her age to get the job, or that she'd been supporting her sick father since she was 15. Woo-jin finished his coffee and reached into his jacket for his wallet. It was made of real leather, probably from Earth, where such things were impossibly expensive. As he pulled it out, his fingers slipped. The wallet tumbled to the floor, spilling its contents across the worn metal. Credit chips scattered like confetti. A few business cards slid under, nearby tables. And right at Hannah's feet, a photograph landed face up. Hannah bent down to help collect everything, but froze when she saw the picture. It was her mother. Not similar to her mother. Not someone who looked like her mother. It was actually Park So-young, with her gentle smile and kind eyes, wearing the blue dress Hana remembered from her childhood. The same woman who'd tucked her into bed every night, who'd sung old Korean lullabies, who'd supposedly died in a factory accident when Hana was 12 years old. But here was her photograph in the wallet of the most powerful man in human space. The diner seemed to spin around her. Her mother had been a simple factory worker on Earth. She'd made textiles for the growing space colonies. She died when her workplace's atmospheric processor malfunctioned. That's what the official reports had said. That's what Hana had believed her entire life. So why did Kim Woo-jin, a man who controlled interstellar corporations and negotiated with alien governments, carry her picture? With shaking hands, Hana picked up the photograph. Her mother's face smiled back at her, exactly as she remembered, but somehow different. In this picture, So Young wore clothes Hana had never seen. Expensive-looking, like something a scientist or executive might wear. Woo-jin had gone very still. The bustling noise of the diner faded into background static as Hana looked up at him, the photograph clutched in her trembling fingers. "Sir," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the thump of the air recyclers. "Why is my mother's picture in your wallet?" Woo-jin's face turned ghost white. The coffee cup slipped from his hands and shattered on the floor, the dark liquid spreading across the metal. For a moment, he just stared at Hana like he'd seen a spirit from his past. The other customers were still gawking and whispering, their phones out recording everything. Woo-jin's jaw tightened as he noticed the crowd. Without a word, he stood up and walked to the diner's entrance. The electronic lock clicked loudly as he sealed the door. "Hey, what are you doing?" shouted one of the truckers. "You can't lock us in here." Woo-jin ignored him and pulled a small device from his pocket. He pressed a button, and suddenly all the phones in the room went dead. The security cameras stopped blinking. Even the background music cut out. "Signal jammer," he said quietly to Hana. "We need privacy for this conversation." Hana's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She was still holding her mother's photograph, and it felt like it was burning her fingers. "I don't understand. This is my mother, Park So-young. She died in an accident at the textile factory on Earth 12 years ago." Woo-jin's shoulders sagged, like he was carrying the weight of worlds. "No, Hana, your mother, Dr. Park So-young, wasn't a factory worker. She was the most brilliant scientist humanity ever produced, and my research partner 20 years ago." The words hit Hana like a punch to the stomach. She staggered backward until her legs hit a booth, and she sat down hard. "That's impossible. She worked at the textile plant. She made fabric for spacesuits and ship interiors. I have her old ID badge, her work schedule. All fake. A cover story to protect you." Woo-jin's voice was heavy with old grief and something that sounded like guilt. "Your mother was a quantum physicist and xenobiology expert. She had 3 doctorate degrees and spoke 7 alien languages. The textile factory job was just a lie we created to keep you both safe." Hana felt like the artificial gravity had been shut off. Everything she knew about her life was spinning away from her. Safe from what? Woo-jin pulled out a data tablet from his jacket. The screen flickered to life, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of star systems glowed like tiny suns, connected by flowing lines of light, but scattered. Throughout were red symbols that pulsed like warning beacons. So Young discovered something that changed everything. We weren't alone in the galaxy, and we weren't developing technology naturally. An ancient race called the Architects had been guiding our progress for decades. The map zoomed in on one of the red symbols. Hana could see a massive structure orbiting a dying star. Something that looked like a metal spiderweb stretched across space, bigger than Earth's moon. "They're older than human civilization by millions of years," Woo-jin continued. "They travel between galaxies, finding young species with potential. Then they guide those species' development, nudging them toward specific technologies." "That doesn't sound so bad," Hana said, though her voice was shaking. Woo-jin's expression darkened. "They've done this to 47 other species, guide them to a certain technological level, then harvest their innovations and eliminate the species entirely. Every breakthrough we thought we'd discovered ourselves. Faster than light travel, quantum computers, bioregeneration. They planted the seeds for all of it. The tablet screen changed to show what looked like a timeline. Dozens of alien species appeared and disappeared along it, each lasting only a few hundred years before vanishing completely. The Kepler civilization, masters of energy manipulation, gone. The Helix Empire, they could manipulate gravity itself, extinct. The Crystal Singers, they turned sound into matter, all of them wiped out once the architects had learned everything. They could. Hannah stared at the screen in horror. But why hide from them? Why not warn everyone? Tell the government, the military? Because your mother discovered something else, something that scared the architects more than any weapon. Wu Jin leaned forward, his eyes intense. Unlike every other species they'd encountered, humans weren't. Just following their guidance, we were improving on it, creating things they never expected. That made us dangerous. He swiped the screen, showing technical diagrams that made Hannah's head spin. They gave us the basic principles for quantum engines. We turned them into interdimensional drives that could slip between realities. They showed us simple AI frameworks. We created machines that could think in ways they'd never programmed. The robots in the outer colonies, Hannah whispered, remembering news reports of mining machines that had started showing creativity and problem-solving beyond their original programming. Exactly. And the bioships near Jupiter that seemed to grow and adapt on their own. The defense satellites that learn new attack patterns without being taught. Wu Jin's voice was rising with excitement and fear. Every gift they gave us, we twisted into something new, something they couldn't control or predict. The tablet showed surveillance footage from space, massive alien ships that looked like floating cities, their hulls covered in strange symbols that hurt to look at directly. They've been watching us for the past 15 years, trying to figure out how we do it, how we take their carefully planned technology and turn it into chaos. Your mother realized they were getting desperate, and desperate architects meant humanity's. Time was running out. Hannah looked around the diner. The other customers were getting restless, banging on the locked door and demanding to be let out. But she barely heard them. So what happened to her? Where is she now? Wu Jin's face crumpled. For a moment, the powerful CEO disappeared, and she saw just a man who'd lost someone important. The architects found her 3 years after she went into hiding. But before they got to her, she managed to hide something. Her research, her discoveries about their technology, and something else. He looked directly at Hannah, and she felt a chill run down her spine. Something in you, Hannah. Your mother wasn't just studying architect technology. She was studying how human minds interact with it, and she discovered that some humans, very few, can actually interface with their systems directly, see through their illusions, maybe even control their machines. The lights in the diner flickered, and outside, Hannah could see something that made her blood freeze. Ships were descloaking in the Martian sky, dozens of them, their hulls reflecting light, in patterns that seemed to shift and change as she watched. "They've found us," Wu Jin said grimly. "After all these years, they've finally come to finish what they started." The locked diner felt like a tomb as Wu Jin began to speak. Outside, the Martian wind howled against the windows, but inside, every word he said seemed to echo in the silence. "For the past 20 years I've been living a lie," he said, his fingers drumming nervously on the table. "Every business deal, every new space station, every colony ship we've launched, none of it was really about making money or exploring space. It was all preparation for a war that most of humanity doesn't even know is coming." Hannah watched the alien ships through the window, their hulls shimmering like oil on water. What kind of preparation? Wu Jin activated his tablet again, showing her blueprints that looked nothing like normal human technology. The architects expected us to develop quantum computers like every other species they'd guided. Simple machines that could process information faster than regular computers. Instead, we created something they never saw coming. The screen showed a strange device that looked part machine, part living tissue. Cables and wires grew like vines through what appeared to be organic brain matter. Quantum biological hybrids. Computers that don't just calculate, they actually think. They dream, they have intuition and creativity. We took their cold, logical technology and made it alive. As if on cue, the diner's old coffee machine suddenly started brewing a fresh pot on its own. Its display screen flickered with symbols that looked almost like writing. "Even the machines here are connected to the network," Wu Jin explained. "Your coffee maker has been learning human behavior patterns for 3 years. It knows you always need caffeine when you're stressed." Hana stared at the machine in amazement. "That's impossible. It's just a basic food service unit." "Nothing's basic anymore. The mining robots on the asteroid belt have started composing music. The navigation computers on our deep space ships write poetry. The defense satellites around Earth have been teaching themselves new languages just for fun." Wu Jin's eyes gleamed with pride and fear. "The architects wanted us to build faster-than-light engines, like all the other species, standard jump drives that could move ships between star systems in predictable ways." The tablet showed massive spacecraft with engines that looked like they were made of crystallized starlight. "Instead, we built interdimensional slip drives. Our ships don't just move through space, they slide between different layers of reality. The architects have sensors that can track any ship moving through normal spacetime. But our vessels, they might as well be ghosts." Through the window, Hana could see human ships rising from Mars Colony 7's hidden launch bays. They moved in ways that hurt to watch, flickering in and out of existence like mirages. "Every major corporation has been part of this," Wu Jin continued. "Stellar Industries builds the ships, Hyperion Corp develops the weapons, Genesis Labs creates the biotechnology. We've been preparing for this war since before you were born. But why keep it secret? Why not tell everyone? Because panic would have destroyed us before the architects ever arrived. And because we needed people to live normal lives to keep being human. The moment everyone knew we were at war, we would have started thinking like soldiers instead of inventors." The tablet showed factories on dozens of worlds, all producing technology that looked like it belonged in a fantasy novel rather than a science lab. Weapon systems that grew like plants, armor that seemed to be made of living metal, spacecraft that looked more like massive insects than traditional ships. "Your mother was the key to all of this," Wu Jin said softly. "She didn't just study architect technology. She figured out how to make it better, how to take their rigid, predictable systems and turn them into something wild and unpredictable." Hana's head was spinning with all the information. "So where is my mother now?" Wu Jin's expression darkened like a storm cloud. "The architects found her 3 years after she went into hiding. We tried to protect her, moved her to safe houses across the galaxy, but they have ways of tracking people that we still don't understand." He pulled up a security recording on his tablet. Hana could see her mother, older than in the photograph, working frantically at a computer terminal. In the background, shadows seemed to move on their own, and the air itself looked wrong, like reality was bending. This was the last transmission we received from her. She had maybe 10 minutes before they broke through her defenses. On the screen, So Young looked directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, they've found me. But I've hidden everything. My research, the location of the weapon prototypes, and most importantly, the key to understanding their technology." "She hid it all in you, Hana," Wu Jin said quietly. "In me?" "What do you mean?" "Your mother wasn't just studying architect technology. She was studying how human minds interact with it. She discovered that some people, maybe 1 in a million, can actually interface with their systems directly, see through their illusions, control their machines, even rewrite their code." Hana felt a strange tingling in her fingers, like static electricity. "That's crazy. I'm just a waitress." "You've been unconsciously processing architect data patterns your entire life. Every job you've worked, every place you've lived, every person you've met, I've been carefully orchestrating your life to expose you to their technology without you knowing it." As if summoned by his words, the spaceport's emergency alarms began blaring. The sound was deafening, echoing off the diner's metal walls. Red warning lights flashed outside, and Hana could hear the voice of the port authority over the intercom. "All ships prepare for immediate departure. This is not a drill. Unknown vessels have entered Mars orbit." Through the windows, they could see the massive alien ships more clearly now. They were enormous, each one larger than the space stations orbiting Earth. Their hulls seemed to shift and change as they moved, covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Smaller ships were launching from their sides like angry wasps from a nest. The human ships rising to meet them looked tiny by comparison, but they moved with impossible grace, appearing and disappearing like they were dancing between worlds. "The war has started," Wu Jin said grimly, "and after 20 years of preparation, we're about to find out if humanity's chaos can beat their order." In the distance, the first energy beams lit up the Martian sky, turning the red planet's atmosphere into a canvas of fire and light. The hidden war was hidden no more. The floor beneath the old coffee machine suddenly split open with a soft hiss. Hana jumped back as a hidden elevator platform rose from below, its edges glowing with soft blue light. "After you," Wu Jin said, gesturing toward the elevator. "Time to see what you've really been working above all these years." As they descended, the walls around them transformed. What had looked like simple metal panels were actually sophisticated display screens, now showing streams of data flowing like digital waterfalls. The elevator dropped much deeper than Hana had expected, at least 50 meters into the Martian bedrock. When the doors opened, Hana's jaw dropped. The space beyond was enormous, stretching out like an underground city. Dozens of scientists and technicians moved between workstations that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing star maps and alien text. Strange machines hummed with energy, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with invisible radiation. "Welcome to Deep Station 7, Wu Jin said. "The real Martian rest." "Stop. This is impossible," Hana whispered, staring at the massive space. "The diner is tiny. How can all this fit underneath?" "Dimensional folding technology. We learned it from studying architects' spatial manipulation devices. The diner above is just a small anchor point. Down here, we've carved out a space that's bigger on the inside than the outside." A woman in a lab coat approached them, her face excited. "Sir, the architect ships are broadcasting on 17 different frequencies. We're picking up massive data streams, but we can't decode them. That's because they're not meant for human minds," Wu Jin explained to Hana. "Their language isn't just words or symbols, it's multidimensional thought patterns. But your mother believed you could understand it." They walked through the facility, past laboratories where scientists were working with technology that seemed to blend magic and science. In one room, a technician was growing what looked like metal flowers that pulsed with their own light. In another, researchers were talking to machines that responded with voices like singing crystals. Every surface in the diner contained microscopic architect technology fragments, Wu Jin explained as they walked. "Every table you wiped down, every floor you mopped, every cup you served coffee in. You've been absorbing their data patterns. Through your skin for 3 years," Hana felt a chill run down her spine. "You've been experimenting on me. Not experimenting, training. Your mother designed a 20-year program to safely expose you to their technology. The first 17 years were spent in normal environments with hidden architect elements. The last 3 years here were more intensive." They stopped at a workstation where massive wall screens showed complex alien symbols that seemed to shift and change as Hana looked at them. Unlike the static text in books, these symbols were alive, flowing like liquid mercury across the displays. "Look at this," Wu Jin said, pointing at the screens. "This is raw architect communication, pure information in their native format. To any other human, it would look like random patterns. But you..." As Hana stared at the symbols, something strange happened. The chaotic patterns began to make sense, not like reading words, but like understanding music or recognizing a face. The symbols weren't just pictures. They were ideas, concepts, entire thoughts compressed into visual form. I can understand it," she breathed. "It's not a language. It's more like looking directly at someone's thoughts." "Exactly. Your mother theorized that architect technology responds to human intuition in ways they never expected. They built these systems to be used by obedient species who follow instructions. But we don't just use things," Hana finished, her fingers moving toward the control interface. "We take them apart and make them better." The moment her hands touched the alien controls, the entire facility transformed. The screens around them exploded with light and information. Data streams that had been flowing in straight lines suddenly began swirling and dancing. The architect symbols on the walls started rewriting themselves, forming new patterns that looked somehow more human. "Incredible," whispered one of the scientists. "She's rewriting their core programming in real time." Hana barely heard him. Her consciousness was expanding, touching systems across the solar system. She could feel the architect ships in orbit, their massive minds cold and calculating. But she could also sense something else. The networks they use to control other species across the galaxy. "They're everywhere," she said, her voice distant. "Hundreds of worlds, thousands of species, all being guided like we were, but none of them know it." On the screens around her, a galactic map appeared. But this wasn't like the simple star charts from before. This was a living network, showing the connections between worlds, the flow of information and control. She could see species that looked like walking trees, others that seemed to be made of living crystal, and creatures that existed as pure energy. "The Zephyrians near the galactic core," she said, pointing at one section of the map. "They think they invented their atmospheric processes, but look, the architects have been feeding them the designs for decades, piece by piece. And the Kelari Empire," Wu Jin added, studying another section. "Their bioengineering technology. It's all been guided development." Hana's fingers flew over the controls, diving deeper into the architect network. Within minutes, she had rewritten core sections of their surveillance system, turning it from a tool of control into a means of communication. "I can reach them," she said excitedly. "All of them. Every species in their network. I can show them the truth." For the first time since the alien ships had appeared, Wu Jin smiled. "That's exactly what your mother hoped you'd say." Around them, the facility buzzed with activity as scientists realized what was happening. For the first time in galactic history, someone had taken control of the architect network and turned it against its creators. Most of these species don't even know they're being guided, Hana realized as she watched the data streams. They think they're developing naturally, making their own choices. But if we could show them the truth, then instead of fighting one species, Wu Jin said, the architects would suddenly face a galaxy full of very angry civilizations who just learned they've been manipulated for centuries. Above them, the battle for Mars continued to rage. But down in the hidden facility, Hana was preparing to turn the tide of a war that had been going on for millions of years. The architects' greatest weapon, their network of controlled species, was about to become humanity's greatest ally. The moment Hana's fingers left the architect controls, alarms started screaming across the galaxy. Not just on Mars, but on every world where human ships were stationed. The hidden network that Wu Jin had spent 20 years building suddenly came alive like a sleeping giant opening its eyes. "Broadcasting now," announced Dr. Kim from her workstation, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "Every human corporation, every colony, every deep space station is sending the same message simultaneously." On the screens around them, Hana could see the transmission spreading like wildfire across the galactic network. Her discovery, the truth about the architects and their manipulation, was being sent directly to every species in their database. But this wasn't just information. Using the architect's own communication systems, the message carried the emotional weight of understanding, the shock of realization that hits when you discover you've been lied to your entire life. The response was immediate and devastating for the architects. The first to react were the Zephyrians, a species of tall, graceful beings who lived in floating cities above their homeworld's poisonous surface. For 3,000 years, they had believed their atmospheric processes were their own invention, a testament to their scientific genius. Now they could see the truth. Every breakthrough had been carefully fed to them by the architects, piece by piece, like treats given to a performing animal. "Look at this," Wu Jin said, pointing to a section of the galactic map. "The Zephyrian home system is gone." Hana leaned closer to see what he meant. Where the star system should have been, there was nothing but empty space. "Did the architects destroy them?" "No," said Dr. Kim, her voice filled with amazement. "They're still there. They've used human-improved quantum technology to phase their entire star system out of normal space-time. The architects can't even find them anymore. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. The Kalari Empire, a civilization of insect-like beings who had mastered bioengineering, were using concepts they'd learned from human research to create weapons that defied everything the architects understood about biology. Their ships were no longer machines but living creatures that could adapt, evolve, and reproduce in the middle of battle. The Thorex, massive bear-like creatures from the Galactic Rim, had always been peaceful traders. But they had also been studying human military tactics through intercepted communications. Now they were coordinating attacks across dozens of sectors simultaneously, using strategies the architects had never encountered. "It's beautiful," Hana whispered, watching the chaos unfold across the network. "They're all doing exactly what we do, taking what they were given and making it into something completely new." But the humans weren't done. As reports came in from across human space, it became clear that the counterattack was just beginning. The mining robots in the asteroid belt had stopped extracting minerals and started building something new: ships that looked like they were grown rather than constructed, their hulls pulsing with organic patterns. The bioships near Jupiter weren't just adapting anymore. They were teaching themselves to reproduce, creating entire fleets of living spacecraft that could heal their own damage and upgrade themselves. In real time, even the defense satellites around Earth had joined the fight, abandoning their orbital positions to form massive mechanical creatures that moved through space like digital dragons, their bodies crackling with energy weapons that rewrote themselves with each shot. "The architects are retreating," reported Captain Lee from the Orbital Command Center. "Their ships are pulling back from all human colonies, but they're not giving up. They're regrouping for something bigger." Hana turned back to the architect. Controls, diving deeper into their network than she had ever gone before. What she found there made her gasp. "It's not just tools," she said, her voice filled with wonder and horror. "Their entire network, it's alive. It's been growing, learning, evolving for millions of years. It's like a galactic brain that connects every world they've ever touched." "Can you control it?" Wu Jin asked. "Better than that," Hana said, her fingers moving across the alien interface with growing confidence. "I can improve it." The screens around them exploded with activity as Hana began rewriting the core programming of a network that spanned half the galaxy. She wasn't just changing settings or adjusting parameters. She was fundamentally altering the way the system thought and operated. "They've been using the same systems for so long, they forgot they could be changed," she said as she worked. "But we change everything we touch. It's what makes us human." Instead of a tool for control and surveillance, the network became something unprecedented. A communication system that allowed every species to share knowledge freely, to learn from each other, to grow together, instead of being harvested separately. For D. The first time in their species' history, the architects found themselves facing something they couldn't predict or control. Their ancient perfect system had been turned against them by a species that refused to be perfect, that thrived on chaos and creativity. The war that followed lasted 6 months, but it wasn't really a war in the traditional sense. It was more like watching a house of cards collapse. Every system the architects relied on had been compromised. Every tool they used had been turned against them. Their client species weren't just rebelling, they were innovating, creating new technologies and strategies faster than the architects could adapt. When it ended, the architects had been driven back to their home system at the edge of the galaxy, their million-year empire in ruins. But more importantly, 47 species that had been living as unknowing puppets were now free to choose their own destinies. 6 months later, Hana stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Alliance headquarters, a massive space station built from the combined technologies of dozens of worlds. Through the transparent walls, she could see ships from across the galaxy working together. Crystalline vessels from the Helix worlds, bioships from the Kalari Empire, and sleek human craft that seemed to dance between dimensions. Beside her, Wu Jin smiled sadly, still carrying the weight of all the secrets he'd kept for so long. "Your mother would be proud," he said quietly. "She always said humans were special not because we were stronger or smarter, but because we never stopped asking, what if we did it differently?" Hana nodded, thinking of the photograph in Wu Jin's wallet. the woman who had sacrificed everything to give her daughter and her species a chance to be free. In the distance, construction crews from a dozen worlds were building something that had never existed before, a truly free galactic civilization led not by conquerors or manipulators, but by the species that had refused to be harvested. The architects spent millions of years perfecting their system, she said, watching a group of young aliens from different worlds playing together in the station's central park. They just never counted on meeting a species that perfects everything. It touches the end,